What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Stick Talk podcast. This is episode 6. Here with a very good friend of ours, Dylan Rich, also known as the SDR Whisperer. How's it going, bro?
It's going good. Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Been seen on YouTube, and I've been here a bunch of times. I haven't. Now I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, man. We just met your fiance for the first time, which was dope. You guys talked about getting a lift in already in the morning. Now you got your double espresso. You got your old fashioned. You got your cigar. We got everything going. So this
a lot
should
of
be
substances.
a lot of substances. So yeah, this will be a lot of fun. So to get us started, question we always ask is for those in the audience who might not know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're up to these days.
Yeah. So name is Dylan Rich. Run 3 companies. One's a SaaS for LinkedIn automation. We run the
name of that is so dope.
Linked Rich, Dylan Rich. Yeah, it's a nice play on words there. And then the second company is called the SDR Whisperer, which is a sales training course. So essentially we take people, teach them on the sales tactics and frameworks of entry-level sales appointment setting, and then we help them actually get a job. And then that parlays into the third business, automated revenue. That works with the client facing. And then we help build sales teams and then place the appointment setters and SDRs within the system that we then create. So it's a nice little ecosystem of sales tools and software.
It's very full circle because what you told me a little bit about your story, and we'll learn more today, but when you first got started, I guess, in like business and sales and entrepreneurship, you were an SDR. And now you're training SDRs and placing them into opportunities. So talk about how you got started in sales and like what your first experiences were like.
Yeah, so I got into sales like everyone gets into sales, not on purpose. So I went to college as a criminal justice, and obviously I use that every day. But my dad was a salesman. That's really how I got into it. So he was a traveling sales guy. As a kid, he's always on the road, right? So he would be in-person sales. He went from Maine to Florida. He owned the entire East Coast. So that's how I learned my sales, and I always hear him in the office. And it was always rapport first, not sales. Like the first 20 minutes of the call would be like, how's the wife? How's the family? Football, whatever. And then like the last 5 minutes would be like, oh yeah, by the way, do you want to renew? And they're like, yeah, let's do it. And I would always be like, cool. So I always looked at my dad. And in college, I got an internship and kind of created an SDR function inside the business. So they sold copiers. Terrible.
But Pursuit of Happiness type shit, like carrying those things around.
No, like your big office, like Xeroxes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I started off there, and I realized they didn't really bring a new business. It was all repeat business, like rapport selling, just like my dad was. And I was like, well, what if you guys like just got new business? Like, well, we don't have anyone for that. So I was like, well, I can do that. And then I recruited a couple of college buddies, and essentially just did it for like beer money. And we would knock on doors, do door-to-door sales, and then go back into the office and use the business card we picked up and call people way before anything that we have now with like automation and like predictive dialing. But that was essentially my intro into sales, was doing that. And then I got into software sales. I was an SDR. I made 200 dials a day, managed sales teams, and then closed deals as an account executive, and then worked way up to director of sales before I quit and worked for myself. So, a lot of sales.
Dude, I feel like just go through like the door to door. Like, what were some of the craziest experiences you had? Like, get the hell out of my face, fuck off, like, leave my property. Like, walk through some of those early failures that were probably a little bit like emotionally scarring, I guess. Like, just getting rejected, door slammed in your face, and how has that translated to making it easier to do cold calling and take a sales call over Zoom nowadays?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, it was a little bit weird, right? Because we would wake up in the fraternity house, and then we would put on like actual business clothes.
Your shoes are sticking to the floor.
Yeah. I had to like knock on Liam. He'd always be the last one because he'd always be like hungover. I'm like, Liam, come on, man, we gotta go like knock on doors. And he was like, this is the worst thing in the entire world. Why did you get me into this? And we dressed up. We went out there, and like, you ever see those no solicitation stickers like everywhere in office buildings? I never really knew what that was, and I didn't really know.
Seems
that.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, but like no solicitation, like about what? Like, what do you like? I realized that I was the solicitation. So
He went to Rutgers. You
yeah,
know?
yeah, I went to Rutgers. I didn't really.
They don't know those words.
You know, I don't read signs. It's New Jersey. So yeah, so like weird experiences, like people would call the cops on us, like get out of here, and then you see the sign, no solicitation. But a lot of these places are like doctors' offices. So like we'd walk in like fully dressed up, hungover college kids, and there's like people like actually sick in the waiting room, and we'd be like, we go to the receptionist, we're like, hey, who's in charge of like your office copier lease? She's like, what?
Yeah.
And we're like, can we like at least get a business card of like the owner? She's like, yeah, here. And then we like leave and then go to the next door, and then the next door, and then take the elevator up, the next door, and just literally canvas the entire office building. So literally it was just only rejection. They're like, get out. What are you doing here?
Any doctor's office in New Jersey is like, Dylan Rich, like, fuck that kid.
That redhead? Yeah. But how does that translate to Zoom? It's like these people are actually putting time on my calendar. It's awesome. They want to talk to me. It's not so forced. So, yeah, you got to deal with rejection over and over and over again to just become immune to it, and then it just works in your favor.
Anyone? Okay.
Yeah, no, me and Andre can relate because
Yeah.
the way that we got into business in general, like our first job was as SDRs. You know, a couple hundred dials a day, like you said, and just pounding the pavement, and you deal with that rejection, and it makes life so much easier as you graduate into higher leverage deals where somebody's booking an appointment with you. It's just like, and it also means that, okay, if you want to leverage human capital down the road and you want to hire people, you can actually like empathize them and give them real training because you put in the work and done it yourself. So I guess talk a little bit about how experience that rejection and, doing, I guess, like, I would say like the very top of funnel work yourself first has gone into now where you're at, where you're not only having people under you for your own company, but you also facilitate that same role for a bunch of other companies. Like, how has that transition helped you, and like what's that been like so far?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer of like you can't ask someone to do something that you haven't done,
Yeah.
and that you haven't done successfully, right? Like you're an operations guy, like you've had to build all of the systems first, made sure they actually worked, and then you're like, all right, well now I'm confident in teaching someone how to do this. You didn't just be like, yeah, you should definitely just do Zapier and figure it out, man. So yeah, you have to walk the walk before you can talk the talk. So being an SDR, hitting quota, being promoted from an SDR, doing that for, 2 different companies. I was an outbound SDR and an inbound SDR. So I know both sides of the coin because if someone opts in, like Antoine for Client Ascension, it's a very different talk track than like calling someone out of the blue, right? And like how you talked about empathy, like it's a tough job.
Yeah.
Like, so in our course, SDR Whisperer, we talk 50-50 about sales and then mindset. So you could be great at sales, but if you're not mentally tough in being an appointment setter and SDR and dealing with that rejection, then you're going to fail. Even if you have great sales skills, you have a great script, a great teacher, it doesn't really matter, right? Because like it's mental energy that you're like exerting on those negative calls, and it's like how you bounce back.
Yeah.
And it just bounces off you. You don't internalize stuff. Because when I started as an SDR, it was, and I'm sure you guys can attest to this, is like you get a couple of like, jump off a bridge responses, and you're like, whoa, like I don't really want to make any more calls today because that sucked.
Hey, please just go to voicemail.
Yeah, please go to voicemail. Please go to voicemail. So like being in those situations, you can empathize and then coach around it. So before it even happens, they know like what to expect and what to look forward to. So I think the empathy is a huge part.
Yeah, I feel like for me, the biggest shift when I was calling was just like, hey, on average, this is what everybody deals with. Everybody gets the fuck offs or the please stop calling me or don't you have anything better to do with your time. But 5 out of every 100 calls, let's say, will convert. So once you get in the habit of getting excited when you get one of those fuck offs, because you're like, oh, great, like I got that one out of the way. I'm closer to one of those 5.
Yeah, I'm closer.
That's where it just becomes a whole lot easier, I guess, to like make the door knocking analogy. When you get somebody like, yo, get off my property, you're like, okay, great, I scratched that one off.
I don't ever have to go back to that person.
Yeah, I don't have to go back there, and I'm also closer to the victory there.
Yeah.
But it's just like you really have to detach yourself emotionally from that and be like, okay, this person's not really rejecting me. they're rejecting, being pitched, right? They just don't feel like it right now.
Yeah.
This is an interesting point of conversation because, like, people out there are wondering if they should get into sales or if sales is for them, right? Because you guys are both talking about how, like, that was your indoctrination period and you changed your mindset around it and use that to your advantage, and that's what kept you going in sales. For me, it's kind of the opposite. Like, I was so sick and tired of that shit, and it was just so emotional draining that I'm like, no, I'm done. Sales is not for me. And I pursued operations and all different aspects of the business. So I guess, like, when you're interviewing candidates or screening candidates for SDR positions, like, how would people know if sales is for them, I guess, and when to keep going through rejection? Because for me, like, I feel like I made the right decision by opting out of sales and choosing something else, and sales isn't for everyone, but yeah, that.
Yeah, so you really don't know until you do it, right? Like, you can think about it and assume a lot of different things about, like, sales, but until you, like, actually put in the reps, like, you can't confidently say it's not for you, right? Like, I've seen people who I didn't think would be good at sales, like, become really good at sales and flourish in sales, and then I've seen other people who I thought were going to be absolute killers, like, flop. So it really just takes the repetitions to kind of, I mean, with anything, right? Like, you got to actually test it and give it a college try to see if it's something that's for you or not for you. But that's kind of what we look for, is like, just like the hunger, because you can teach someone an offer, you can teach someone how to say words, but you can't really teach that, like, that hunger that's going to be like, I've only made 99 calls today. Like, are you going to make that 100th call? Like, that's kind of what separates the boys from the men.
Yeah, I agree with you there that you have to give it the college try. But I also think there's, like, another indicator, I guess, to look at is procrastination. Like, there's a direct correlation between how much you procrastinate and if you should start doing something. And a lot of people will try to be like, oh, no, I just have a short attention span, and that's why I'm going on TikTok, or that's why I'm going back on Twitter. And, just all I need is, 5 more Adderalls, and I'll be back in the game. But, like, that's not really true. Like, if you're trying to learn a skill and you find yourself just constantly procrastinating, it's because you don't like it. So the only reason you would just try to power through is because, like, you're focused on, like, that number. Like, oh, I can make $10K a month doing remote sales, so I just need to, keep fighting through and put in my time. Like, it's not really the reality. If you can't focus on it and you find yourself constantly procrastinating, I don't think it's for you. Like, you probably, when you were cold calling, Andre, found yourself probably just like, all right, I'll try to, like, do, like, a sprint of, like, 10 calls, but then I want to kind of, like, go online and try. Is that, like, accurate?
Bro, I hope our former employer is not listening to this, because, like, there were instances where I'd pick up the phone and dial and hang up before it even had the chance to answer.
That was the next thing I was going to talk about. So
I'm like, oops, they didn't answer. One dial. Because they're like, make 30 dials. I'm like, okay, dial, hang up. Dial, hang up. And it was like, there we go, 30 done.
30
out
done.
the door.
Boom. But, like, that's a great point, because, like, I did sales, so I did the copier sales, and then I sold cars. So I did sales for, like, probably a year-ish, but I never made a cold call. It was all face-to-face sales interactions. So, like, when you put that, like, facade of, like, not seeing the person, not being able to see their smile, shaking their hand, and, like, having kind of like a cheat code of that, like, because, like, if you come up with energy to someone face-to-face, like, you're gonna win. With a phone, it's all tonality. So my first couple of calls, and it was in a boiler room setting. So there was, like, 25 guys, like, all dialing.
Like Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, like literally Wolf of Wall Street. It was a young startup company. We were talking to sports coaches, high school football coaches, high school basketball and volleyball coaches. So it was, like, high energy, like, talk the talk type person. Like, how would you cold call, like, your high school coach? Like,
Look up their, like, stats from last night. Like, great win last night, coach.
yeah, but that tonality is what you had to do. It's like, what's up, coach? How you doing? What are you doing? So my seat was the closest to my manager, Evan, who's actually a beast. He went on to, like, build Uber Eats sales team. Yeah, great mentor. But I did the same thing as you. It would dial, and I didn't want to fuck up, like, on
in
the
front
call
of him
with everyone that could hear me. Like, I didn't want to be that guy, so I was terrified. And I would, like, dial, click, dial, click. Like, wow, Don, you got, like, 60 calls already. It's lunchtime, and I'm like, yeah, but I haven't heard you say anything. I was like, that's a bad day on the phones, Evan. It's a bad day on the phones.
It's a volume game.
It's a volume game. He's like, you haven't even let the voicemail. I was like, yeah, I just want to get through the numbers. Like, but I was so scared of, like, just messing up in public. But, like, you just got to get over that shit, you know?
I feel like something that truly, truly helps with all of that is mindset. And this is actually a pretty cool story. So like, I think the first time I ever talked to you outside of a Twitter DM was on a phone call. We were actually, so this is actually crazy. It's all now coming to me. We were supposed to do a podcast. Like that was going to be the first time we hopped on a call. And back at that time, we were running like Christian and I were hosting the Agency Builders podcast. And by time like we had something lined up with you, we just cut that podcast. So I was like, I feel bad. We already committed to doing this. Let me just hop on the phone and hear this guy out and see, if we could work together on something. And we just had a really dope conversation, hit it off, and got into talking about Client Ascension, which is our coaching program. And one of the missing components that you pointed out right away was mindset coaching. And I told you a little bit about my backstory working with a mindset coach and how that's helped me as a business owner and an entrepreneur and through COVID and all these other things that are happening. And we went out and hired that mindset coach, put him in Client Ascension, and it was one of the best decisions we've ever made. So talk about mindset, because I feel like it's one of those topics that people just don't truly believe in. They think it's like, oh, it doesn't really matter. I just got to do revenue, make sales. But like, how does mindset help drive sales and success in business?
It's just like going to the gym for your brain. Like it's like making yourself tougher and tougher mentally. Like you can go to the gym, you become stronger, right? The more you go to the gym and the more reps you do, the higher the weight it is. The same thing happens with your brain. So like mindset's massive. It literally allows you to unlock potential that you would never have unlocked unless someone helped you understand your mind, right? A lot of people are self-limiting, like you were saying, like I'll do this when this happens, or I'll be happy when this happens, or like all of that is like mindset, right? It's like how you frame something is really just how it's going to be. Like if you frame something negatively and you speak negatively upon something, you're probably going to have a negative outcome, right? Like if you're on a cold call and you just keep shitting on your own thing, are they going to book a call? Like, no, right? Like you have to be positive. And the more positive you are, the more positive things happen. And like once I unlocked that, because I had bad mindset when I was working a 9 to 5, like I was like, I'm not where I want to be. I'm not reaching my full potential. Like what is wrong with this? You start blaming others. You start looking at people who have success and you're like, why is that not me? And you like start to like create a gap mentally between who they are and like where you're at. And then you get like angry about it. You get anxiety, like this whole thing. So my first like kind of what got me in entrepreneurship, I joined a group called Wake Up Wealthy, and they're called their big pillars are mind, body, spirit, and business. So like I got really in tune with like your mind, your body, and like things that you've been like suppressing or like not talking about, or like things you're not proud of, and you just face it, you put it into the light, and like you grow up. And I realized like there's so much more I could be doing in my life. So like I'm a huge proponent of mindset. Like how you think about things and how you talk about things is truly like how it affects your outcome. So when we were on the phone, I knew how powerful it was for me, and I knew you were in a similar offer, right? Talking and working with entrepreneurs. And I was like, you got to have mindset in there, because that's like the thing that could like separate you from someone else in your same offer and your same niche. Like there's other coaching programs, but like you guys have better mindsets, or you guys are working on your mindset progressively. Like that's going to differentiate yourself. It's not your offer. It's not your MRR. It's just who you
the
are.
operator of the business.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's the biggest asset.
Yeah, how you
especially for
show
our
up
types.
is how your business shows up.
Yep.
100%.
I think I want to talk about your past experience. What did you do, like 9 years SDR? 8 years?
Well, in sales, yeah.
Yeah.
If I was 8 years as SNR, you shouldn't be listening to me. But, yeah.
I'm not well versed enough in sales, but anyways, I feel like you have a unique path to where you are now, where a lot of people that we talk to dropped out of school, started their own stuff right at 19, 20. You know, they've been doing it their whole career, whereas you have a long background in, corporate sales and startups and not doing your own thing. So talk about that pivot from, 8 years in the sales game with the startup and transitioning that into a business, because I feel like that's a very rare path for the community that we're in.
Yeah.
So just talk about how that's helped you, maybe how it even hurt you. Just like what was the transition like from those 8 years in startup sales to starting your own thing?
Yeah, so it was a positive and a negative, right? Like sometimes I think to myself, like, would you turn 23 today?
Yeah.
Happy birthday, by the way.
Dude, I forgot it was my birthday.
Yeah. Happy birthday, Christian.
Like, oh my God.
But yeah, dude, you turned 23. If I look back on what I did when I was 23, like you are crazily ahead of me. like wild. And like without mindset, I could be like, oh well, woe is me. Like I'm what 8 years older than you. Like fuck, this kid's got me beat. But like no, like I'm happy for you, right? So it definitely delayed my jump into entrepreneurship. And I see kids that are even younger than you, making money like Mickey in there, right? Like so cool. But yeah, so I went the more traditional route just because I didn't know any better, right? Also, it was less technologically advanced when I was 23. Like, I don't even know if Salesforce was around. Like, there wasn't like SaaS. So it's just a different time than where we're at now, where it's such a low barrier to entry to kind of becoming an entrepreneur and making money online. But the 8 years in sales, it taught me like an actual org structure, like company structure, like real high level things like an MQL, an SQL, band qualifications, and like really like top level thinking, right? And I took it for granted. I just thought everyone knew that. And like when I was first on Twitter and things like that, I never talked about this stuff because I just figured it was commonplace. And then I start talking to people and they're like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, that sounds pretty cool. Like, oh, that's genius. I'm like, that's not genius. That's something I learned like 6 years ago. And I think Dickie Bush said it great during the keynote. Is like, what did you know 2 years ago? Or what didn't you know 2 years ago that you know now that you would have loved to know 2 years ago? And I was like, holy shit, that's genius. Like, so the 8 years in sales, it helped me a lot understanding like actual companies, operations, systems, sales operations. It also showed me a lot of like how archaic a lot of companies operate. Like they just don't have, like I was talking to a guy from Yelp, a client ascension call, and they have no automation. They have like no tools. They use Yesware. Do you know what Yesware
I don't
is?
know what that is.
Exactly. It's terrible. It's like GMass, but worse. So Yesware is like a Chrome extension and essentially just tells you when someone opens your email and it just gives you an update. And people are like, that's such a cool technology. Like, yeah, it opens your eyes. Like being on that side and then being exposed to this side of like fast speed technology driven kids that are like doing shit that I would have been like, I would have crushed if I knew what I knew now back then. But it really opened your eyes to like, I can actually be successful in selling things because I know all the pain points of the companies that I'm selling to.
Yeah, but another point I want to make is I feel like going from something as specific as sales, where your entire day is just dialing, making calls, following up, closing deals, to running a business where there's 58 other things you have to manage and be good at. How did you get competent at running a business, hiring people, doing outbound, every other aspect of a business besides sales? Was that
I had to
overwhelming for you?
suck at it first.
Yeah.
I had to be really bad at it first. So, like, sales is easy. But, like, I always had a customer success team. And I always had, like, the sales engineer to help the deals. So, like, when you went out on my own, I was like, I didn't think of it. I just did it. And then I closed deals. I think my first real month was, like, 15K. I closed 3 5K clients. And I was terrible at delivering on what I sold because I never had to do it. So the next month I was at 0K. I was like, oh wow, shit. Probably
There
shouldn't
are
have spent.
three
probably shouldn't
guys
have
knocking
spent
on your
that money.
door.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, I had a dispute and everything was bad. But I was like, all right, stop selling things that you can't deliver on, Dylan. Like, you would have never worked for that company, right? Like, you would have never worked for the company that couldn't deliver on what you're selling. So you had to become someone who delivered. So I wish I knew you earlier, but I had to learn operations and fulfillment. A lot of YouTube, a lot of talking to other entrepreneurs and joining them. I was in that Mother Mastermind, Wake Up Wealthy. And I just was like, hey guys, like, how do you do this? How do you do that? Just be super inquisitive and just be okay with sucking at it until you get to the point where you don't suck.
Yeah. Which is insane because you're such a good operator now.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to like systems and sequences, I'm like, this guy's a fucking wizard with things like go high level that a lot of people are overwhelmed by. And I feel like that goes back into your point about mindset because from where you quote unquote sucked at 15K and then going back down to 0 to now, that's what, probably like a year and a half? Like, how long has it actually been?
It's been a year, right, since you started?
So I started my LLC was in May of 2021. Yeah. So like a year and a half since the LLC, but I quit my job December 1st. So it's been a year of being on my own. Obviously, I was doing both at the same time. But yeah, you just have to like be totally like I'm terrible at this. I need to be competent, or like I'm just gonna have a 9 to 5 forever.
This is like super interesting because I'm seeing a correlation with like you as a person, right? So Dan just pointed out like it's crazy how far you've come as an operator in what, like a year?
Yeah.
And where on average probably takes people like it took me like 10 years of building Legos and like a couple of years of running different businesses and learning the ins and outs. So that's one thing. And then the other thing I know about you is like you just recently started playing golf as well. And you got really fucking good at golf in a really short period of time. For again, like in a year time, like and I've golfed with you enough with other people where they ask how long have you been playing for, and you tell them, and they're shocked because of the competency. So I think that's just like a trait that is in a big way part of your success is like when you commit to something, you go all in. And so
It's like
I
an
guess talk
addiction.
about
Yeah, it's
that.
like an
Like when
addiction.
you like, why are you successful at golf and operations only a year into it? Like, what are some of those day-to-day things that you do?
Yeah, so I think it's just like full inundation, not in the moment, but like overall, like learning about golf, following like YouTube channels like Good, and surrounding yourself with other people that golf, and like really just flooding and making it part of like who you are, I think. And then also, I mean, I don't like being bad at anything. Like when I first started golfing, I was like, it was just fun enough to the point where I want to learn it. And like I can see it's like a business thing, and like everyone golfs, and I'm not getting any more athletic to play like basketball competitively. So I was like, golf's a good happy medium there, and it was fun. It's outside. It's a good break from being at the computer, but I was god awful at it, like hitting the ball like 25, 30 yards, and it just pissed me off. And I was like, I know I can be better at this. Like it's just technical things. And then I bought books on golf. I didn't even know there was books about golf. I just like relentlessly pursued it until the point where I was like kind of happy about it. I'm still not happy about everything, right? I still chunk shots and everything.
I think that's why you continue to get better at such a fast rate too.
Yeah, it's just like relentless pursuit of something. Yeah.
And like never being satisfied with the progress, which has its ups and downs, right?
Yeah, it has that.
So,
Yeah.
Talk about the new series you're doing.
Oh yeah, you got espresso nose.
Oh, I got it.
I was like, why are you guys
Espresso notes.
laughing?
I
Like,
didn't know how to
Me and
cut
Danny
it,
were
too.
like,
We kept going like that for like the past.
no, but talk about your new series where you have people on to talk business, but you're in a golf cart on the golf course. I think it's cool as shit, and I think it could really blow up. So kind of talk about where you got the idea for it, and what's the basis of the show.
Yeah, so I mean, hopefully someone from Good Good's watching. That'd be sweet. But I watched a bunch of Good, and they're like super charismatic guys, and like you just watch it. It's not even for golf anymore.
it's like a feel-good thing.
Yeah, it's like these guys are actually like good guys who are just like boys playing golf, and they decided to pick up a camera. And I was like, well, if I'm gonna be picking up a camera for business stuff, and Good has 1 million subscribers, they do these cart interviews with other golfers. And I was like, well, if I'm doing interviews like I am right now, I might as well just combine the two, because most entrepreneurs have more free time and like golf. It's a very business oriented sport. So I was like, well, let me just do that. Like I would watch that.
Yeah.
That's how I kind of figured out. Like I've watched Good, and I was like, you know what? I watched them already. I watch people do business podcasts. Let's just connect it. So yeah, we got our first one dropping probably this week or next week. With
Chandler?
Yeah, with Chandler.
Let's go! I can't wait to
Yeah.
watch that.
At Cove K. But yeah, I'm pumped for it. It was a lot of fun doing it. Luckily, I didn't play bad that day.
Yeah, no pressure. I guess that just transitions into. I know you're making a huge push with like YouTube content, short form, your show. Like, talk about the importance of leveraging a personal brand in a podcast to grow a business, to grow your following, to make connections, and all that stuff. Because I feel like now more than ever, it's really saturated with the YouTube branding and all that stuff in short
Yeah.
form. So it's hard to stick out. So talk about like how you've invested into it. Like, what are you doing that's making yourself stand out from the crowd? Whether it's like technical stuff like SEO and your setup, to things like trying to make content that's engaging and informative and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's a great question. And like to preface it, like I think Daniel has a good video of this. Is like stop caring what like people think about it. Like that's the first step, right? In like the content creation is like I was always that person, like, you know what? I'll make tweets, I'll post LinkedIn photos, LinkedIn content, but like I wasn't really about like putting my face on camera. And literally, it was the Client Ascension event, and I was talking to Logan and Nick and Miles, and they were like, "Dude, like you should be on camera, like just talk about what you're doing." And I was like, "Well, I'm already on Zoom, like 6 hours a day. I'm already on the camera. I might as well just do a little bit extra and start making content." And what really stuck me out was like everyone talks about cold email. No offense. But no one's really talking about cold calling, right? Because it takes it's a different animal. Like cold email, it's great. Like it's super big on copywriting. And like systems and actually sending those messages out. But like cold calling is like something that nobody was talking about, and I'm very competent and like comfortable talking and teaching about it. And I was like, well, there's an opening here that I can do similar sales content and like the revenue generation and getting clients, but doing it from a different channel. So that's kind of the opportunity that stuck out directly to me. And I was like, well, I'm just going to talk about this. And it parlayed to the SDR Whisperer and everything. The SEO stuff is cool, but I think it's just like volume, like, and detaching from the outcome.
Yep.
Like, I think a lot of people, like, they start posting content, they're like, oh, I only got like 60 views or 10 views. Like, who cares? Who cares? Like with YouTube, it's permanent. And Daniel talks about that too. Is like someone can just go to your YouTube and look at a video when you were terrible at YouTube and like get actual value from it. So it's like detaching from the outcome of like, this needs to go viral for it to be worth my time, to like, this is just another thing to help you generate more money and build more trust with your audience.
And I feel like through the process, you become better at the skill set that you're teaching.
Yeah.
Like, because you're
You have to talk it
forced
through.
to, yeah, you're forced to conceptualize it in a way that like the average person will understand it. And that's not easy. Like if you're not already an expert in this said subject, it's going to be really hard for you to make content that people will get value from and understand.
Yeah, I think it weeds out a lot of people. Like it would have weeded me out if I didn't have that like come to Jesus moment. But like, if you're gonna stand out, everyone's tweeting, everyone's writing threads, everyone's getting a ghostwriter and everything. But like, now it's stepping up the game. Like I'm an actual human being. I'm real. I know what I'm actually talking about, and like, it's just another weapon in your arsenal as a business owner. And it's honestly been pretty enlightening for me, like with like confidence and things like that. And like you grow, you get out of your comfort zone, and that's the only way to grow. So it's been pretty cool to be able to do it and like feel good about it. You're like, oh, I can actually do this. Like I'm the person who can be successful creating content and short form copy. It's been fun.
Yeah, and I feel like consistency and actually sticking with it is within itself the strategy to stick out. Because if you have 10 people that start a YouTube channel each month, 9 of them are going to drop off that same month.
Yeah.
So if you look at it over the course of a year, you have 120 people who started a YouTube channel, and now 12 of them are left. If you just stuck with it for a year, you're in the top 12 of the 120 people that started. So I feel like that's the thing too, is just like you said, especially early on, not being like, oh, there's only fucking 40 views. Like I should just quit. Like what's 40 views
You're gonna
do for my
suck.
business?
You're
gonna
always suck in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. But you're naturally gonna get better, like Andre said. If you just stick with it, you're going to be one of those people that are around. And then also, like I like what you said about being in front of the camera is just a really good way to build credibility. Because especially in like the digital marketing space, like there's a lot of bad actors, right? Who will never get on camera because they don't know what they're talking about. So it's just another way to build trust and like
They're
really
just
be authentic with your audience.
They're regurgitating other people's
Actually,
words.
some of those guys get on camera more than they should, but we won't mention any names. The other thing that's worth mentioning too is like, it's cool because we have a lot of the same like mentors and friends in our corner that help us through some of this stuff. So like Miles, who you mentioned earlier, like the way he put it to me was like, when you go to like a Tate or an Iman Godsi YouTube channel, like, yeah, sure, their videos now have 500,000, 1 million views, which is sick. But if you scroll all the way down, you can see like 5-6 years ago, when they first started, like it was a selfie video. It had a couple hundred views. Obviously a lot more now because all the people that are seeing their new videos are now going to the bottom of their channel. But like the real estate value of a potential customer being able to go back 5 years and see where you were at and the person you've now become is so dope. And even for you to be able to go back and see like 5 years ago. And I was talking about this last night. with my cousin who makes music, and it's like the Jordan documentary that came out during COVID. Like, I think a lot of people gravitated towards that because it's like nobody even knew that was documented. Like, imagine if that whole run, that championship run, wasn't documented in the way that it was.
Yeah.
I just think it's so dope. Like, document the content now, because you never know, like, who you're going to be 10 years from now, or what people 10 years from now are going to want to see, or how they're going to make purchasing decisions. It's just like, there's no reason not to. There's no excuse, I guess.
Yeah, you build a relationship with your audience. Because, like, there's probably going to be people who watch your first YouTube video and then in, like, a year, they're at a time to buy. And the first person that pops in their head is you because they've seen your journey and they're like, well, I've been rocking with you since the beginning.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's super cool. I mean, like, even, like, the short period of time that we've known each other, it's like I've been able to see you grow, and you grow. In person and in social, and it's like it just creates a bond that's unique. Like we've met on the internet, and now we're in a room together. We play golf together. So it's like you never know what's gonna happen. So just do it.
Yeah, and I think a big metric that's impossible to measure is just being top of mind for people.
Yeah.
Because there's people that won't like your content, won't reply to your content. You won't even really know that they exist, but they see your shit.
Yeah.
And even though you don't know that they see your stuff, they do. And then when it's time for them to make a purchasing decision for cold email, coaching program, mentorship, consulting, you're going to be one of the first ones they consider. And it's just because you're so top of mind for them. So if you're posting content, I think it's super important to not get discouraged by a lack of vanity metrics, likes, replies, engagement, because there are people, one, that engage or view and appreciate your content that you don't know are engaging with it, that actually are on the back end without liking it. And two, there's people that are liking it that have 2 followers that you think are just some anon account from India that has no chance of purchasing from you, that winds up being like a former VC executive that now has $10 million to go invest in marketing in a new venture. So you never know who's following you, and you never know who's paying attention. So that's why it's super important to not get discouraged by
Absolutely, dude.
stuff.
I had a guy, I think it was like last week, he sent me a screenshot. Never spoke to him my entire life. I don't even think he followed me. And he sent me a DM, and you had to read it, whatever the top thing on the Twitter DMs.
Yeah.
And he sent me a screenshot of him introing me to a prospect. Because the guy was talking about, like, do you have SDRs? And he goes, no, you should talk to this guy. Yep. And he found he might have scraped Apollo, found my email address, and literally gave me a referral introduction.
Yep.
And I've never met him, never talked to him. Super grateful for him, and I thanked him and everything. But I was like, holy shit, like, you don't know until it happens. So that's a great point, Christian.
I guess like an interesting question is like, we're kind of hitting on the topic of like becoming the go-to person in your space for XYZ skill, right? And like that's something you've done really well around like SDRs and, like you said, cold calling. No one was really talking about cold calling, at least in our little corner of Twitter. But obviously there are a lot of experts and people with more experience and money than all of us sitting here today that talk about this stuff. So for the audience out there that might be considering like, okay, I want to be the go-to person for this skill set, but there's already someone doing that, what would you say to them, or what advice would you have around competition?
Yes, I mean, competition is good. If you don't have competition, it's going to be a very hard, long, arduous battle, right? Because it's not, the road's not paved yet, right? Like, it's much easier to drive down a paved road than a dirt road. So, like, don't shy away from competition. Like, learn from it. Like, study your competition, study your competitors. What's working for them that you could then emulate and maybe improve upon. But essentially, it's like other people are giving you the blueprint in public. Like, take it, put your own personality and your own twist on it, and like run with it. Because like people are paying money for their thing. Like, they don't have 100% market share. Like, look, like Salesforce, they don't have 100% market share. They still lose it to HubSpot and Close and High Level and all these other tools. But like HubSpot was probably like scared of Salesforce one day. The founder was like, you know what, Salesforce is a great CRM tool, but they don't really have automation and like outbound stuff. It's only a CRM. And like, you could be the HubSpot to someone's Salesforce because, being second or third is, just fine in a large competition space. So, again, just do it. Test it out. Go for it.
Yeah, I think all those companies are doing okay.
But they weren't at one time.
Yeah.
They weren't at one time.
But it's like, what it sounds like is if you're in that position, analyze two things, right? Analyze your competitors and then analyze your potential customers and see where your competitors are missing the mark on what your
Yeah.
customers are needing or looking for, and then fill that gap.
Yeah.
Right.
And especially in like a SaaS play, like buy their SaaS and like be like, what do I not like about this tool? And like try to find gaps because no one does everything perfectly. It's impossible. So there's always an opportunity in something.
I guess that's how like the best products and services and courses and info products are made, is like you're building something for your past self, right?
Yeah.
And I heard this on like an Ed Milet podcast, and you embody this because you're helping SDRs when before you were an SDR. With Client Ascension, we're helping agency owners as agency owners. And I think, again, those are like the most powerful, life-changing products on the market, and also the most fun to fulfill. Like Client Ascension, like we just get so much joy out of running that business compared to some other things in our past. So I guess like talk about that. Like how does showing up, knowing that you're going to have a lot of fun and like make a really positive impact on the people you're working with, attribute to your success and your lifestyle?
Yeah, I mean, you got to love what you do at some level. Like you talked about it earlier, right? Like if you're like procrastinating and like finding to like force yourself to do something, it's not ever going to work out long term. Because like I forget what the quote is, but it's like motivation it only goes so far.
It's
right?
fleeting.
Yeah.
Discipline.
Yeah, discipline will always go beyond motivation. So being able to help people who are in the shoes that I was in, and if I'm able to expedite or shorten their time frame to like, you know, it took me 8 years to go from an SDR to a business owner. Like if I could help someone become an SDR to a business owner in like 2 years, that's a huge win for me, and that's what makes me feel happy. And you're helping others, right? And like I think we all know that the more you help others, the more in turn they help you, and the more successful you are. Is like not being about yourself and like being grateful and showing gratitude to others. But I think that's what really keeps it like you said, like the fast success is because I genuinely love what I do. And when I wake up every day, I'm excited every single day, not because it's like some cool, like new SMMA agency. I'm going to try to make 10K a month. It's because like I don't care how much it makes right now. Like I just know that the longer I do it and the more successful and the better I get at it, like there's no possible way I can't be successful.
And you don't even have to love every aspect of what you do,
The
but you have to
results,
love parts of it, and you have to realize the other parts serve a purpose. Like I don't love sending like my 45th bump message of the day. I like bringing this to the top of your inbox. They're like, fuck this guy. But I do love closing deals. So like when it happens, it's great. And I also remind myself like, hey, all of the other touch points that led up to this serve the purpose. Like in hindsight, I thought they were kind of meaningless. Like the other day we closed a deal and there was like, I sent like a screenshot of the email thread and there was 27 emails. And like I had to work through like a guy who left the company and had to talk to a whole new contact. And they had a bunch of different decision makers there. That's super
discipline.
rewarding.
That's
Yeah,
discipline.
exactly. And then like where I get like my biggest dopamine hits now, if I'm just, having like a slow day, I'll look in the wins channel at Client Ascension and they're all people like closing deals, right? So I get super hyped about that because I know what that dopamine hit feels like. When we close a deal, I'm like running around the apartment and like playing Get the Gat or something stupid. But I know like the joy that brings. So I feel like if you love parts of it and realize the other parts that lead up to it have purpose, that's like a good intent signal that like, hey, I'm on the right track in terms of what I'm doing.
And like you're never gonna be like you're never gonna be like that every day. That's just impossible, right? Or it's like overuse of stimulants. But like you're never just gonna be like, I fucking love this thing so much. Like no, we're all human beings. We all have bad days. We all have like our ups and downs. But like, it's like what you do when you don't want to do it, right? It's like the corny stuff.
I always say everyone has great days that you perform well on and you're dialed in on. What separates people is how well you perform, like how much you can get done on the days where you have no motivation, can't focus.
Like the flu game for the Jordan.
The second greatest player of all
The
time.
GOAT.
Yeah.
Who do you think's the GOAT, by the way?
Oh, dude, we had this
LeBron,
conversation. No, dude, absolutely not.
Messi or Ronaldo?
Oh,
Well, someone got benched. Someone didn't get benched.
so
Exactly.
you're a Messi guy too?
Let's go.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. Knew you were a good
But yeah,
person.
Michael Jordan is the GOAT.
Did you play
Absolutely.
sports growing up?
Yeah. Tennis and basketball.
Bro, look at the guy.
Dude,
Yeah.
we gotta play
Didn't
tennis.
play sports. He was fucking made for sports.
He starts for the Saints.
I'm a
right now.
doubles player.
All right, let's do doubles. Me and you versus these two.
Yeah, or we could just
cook 'em.
golf. Yeah, we can play tennis though. I got my
Also,
racket.
just quick sports disclaimer for this episode. England versus France is going on in the background, so if you hear a lot of noise, that's what it is. Me and Christian are riding on
Discipline.
France, so we'll see if that hits.
Discipline.
Having a
yeah.
podcast during a England France World Cup game. But yeah, it's all about discipline. You just gotta be relentless in it.
It's so funny. I check my text from like people that it's my birthday. I get texts from people I haven't talked to in a year. It's like a year ago today. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. It's like, okay.
Look at Mr. Popular over here.
The Facebook like tells everyone. It's your
Yeah,
birthday.
this is
You
actually a
feel
good
from,
pivot. Like,
your second aunt.
have you had anybody reach out to you now that you're running your own business, doing your own thing in Florida, that you grew up with or you were in college with? Like, dude, I love what you're doing. Like, how can I get
Oh
started?
yeah, bro!
with
You
it?
were taking pictures when we were golfing the other week to your friends in New Jersey, like, haha, like this is the life.
But have you had people reach out like, dude,
That's
how
just
can I
that's a
do that?
location.
Yeah.
That's a location thing. 'Cause I know how cold it is. Actually, the funniest one and the most recent one is my cousin's high school boyfriend. His name is Dan. We went to high school together. He's older than me.
She was a nice lady.
And he's always a cool guy. And we didn't speak for literally, what was it? I was in like 8th grade or something. So a long time ago. And he messaged me on LinkedIn, going, "Hey man, love what you're doing, love the content. Like, would actually love to like have you on my podcast and like talk about it." So it was like you said, no, you never know who's watching.
Yeah.
And it's just cool because you always think the worst. Like, oh, all my boys from home are gonna think
Nah,
I'm
I hate
corny.
that. I hate that perspective where it's like, oh, if I post content, people that I grew up with, relatives, are gonna think it's dumb and corny.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah,
single
they're
time.
like, look at those pink shoes. What is he thinking?
these shoes are dope.
It's Steph and bubblegum.
Fucking with you, brother. Off whites, they're sick.
Yeah. Anyways,
What is just funny?
whenever like
Did
when
you
I
wash him with another pink shirt or
what?
were they white originally?
It's see through with the sock. It's a cool little feature of the shoe, sock color. But when I announced the podcast, like a lot of people would be like, oh, if I announce my podcast to my home audience I grew up with, my high school friends, my relatives, they're gonna think it's corny, it's dumb. But literally every single person that reached out to me about the podcast was like, can't wait to listen. This is super high quality. Love what you're doing. Proud of you. Happy for you. It's never
It's never what you think.
what you think. Like the
Yeah.
only time, like if someone reaches out to you and shits on you for posting business content, you don't want them in your life anyways. And if you post the business content, you're actually going to establish credibility. Maybe rekindle an old connection because someone that you grew up with that you haven't talked to reaches back out and
Yeah.
says how cool it is.
Or someone that ghosted you on Hinge.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the thing. Like, even if somebody doesn't like it and they think it's super corny, they're not going to reach out to you and say like, "Oh, nice pink shoes, bud."
Yeah.
Like, nobody's going to.
And if they do, you
that.
shouldn't give a shit.
No. But I'm saying
Yeah.
what's more likely going to happen is people may talk shit behind your back. But what you have to realize is that those people are only doing that because
They're
they got
broke,
their
we
own
up.
issues. Yeah, exactly. They're operating from a place of like,
Scarcity.
oh, I'm really just pissed because I'm not doing anything.
What's the
with my
saying?
life
Like
right
no
now.
one above you is ever going to shit on you. It's always someone that's doing worse. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
I
like
think shit runs downhill, Christian.
it's
So-
like
was
the
gonna
man in
say.
the arena.
Like,
No, it's
they
like
would
no one
have to
doing
be
better
above
than you is
they would
ever
have
gonna
to
talk
be,
shit
uh,
about you. They don't
so
know
the
anything.
best. So if you are in that situation, the best book that I've read is The Power to Be Disliked or The Courage to Be Disliked.
That's
Yeah.
on my desk.
It's really
It's a good
good.
book.
It's a really good book, and it just talks about it's other people's tasks, like someone like like your little podcast or like whatever it is, right? Like the memes. But at the end of the day, like don't internalize any of that because like how are they gonna deter your path? They live their own life, you live your own life, and if they're projecting their own insecurities on top of you, you should be like, you know what? Like I wish you the best. But
I also
I'm
like
gonna
the saying
be
that
me.
everyone thinks they're the star of their own show, so they think like if they embarrass themselves in public or whatnot, that everyone's gonna remember that for the rest of their day. Like if you fall in Publix and break a glass of spaghetti all over yourself, like people will remember that
A glass of spaghetti?
a jar of spaghetti sauce.
Yeah,
Okay, pasta
You
sauce.
just said spaghetti. You didn't say
You just get a
sauce.
bunch of pasta sauce on your shirt in Publix. Like 5 minutes after that,
Yeah,
mishap.
that actually happened last night. The cameraman kicked your wine glass and it got all over that chick's shirt.
Yeah, and that's embarrassing for the camera guy. But
But
how
like
many
10
people
minutes
went
later,
home
no
that
one-
night and cared about it? Nobody.
no
like
one.
Yeah,
you think you're the star of your own show, but no one really gives a shit about you that much, and that's a good thing because you can put yourself out there, embarrass yourself if you think that's what's going to happen if you post content about business, and no one's really going to remember it.
Yeah, you think you're much more important, and
Yeah.
people care way more about your stuff. Like, oh, this guy posted another YouTube video. All right, bet.
In the nicest way possible.
And the people that do remember,
no one gives a shit
and the
about
people
shit.
that do remember are the ones that think highly of you and want to work with you and want to learn from you.
Yeah.
And encourage you to do your own thing. And
Yeah.
this is one of my favorite sayings, I guess, or like concepts to live by, which is like, if you're doing things for the approval of others and not for your own self-enjoyment, you should reconsider doing those things, right?
Yeah.
And this is like my whole thing. Like, I'm not like against social media, because obviously that's how we've been able to grow our business. But like, I personally got rid of my personal Instagram account and Snapchat account and all those different accounts that were taking me away from the business, because I found myself posting and doing things to show other people that I was doing these things. And like this past year of my life, I now find myself doing things that I genuinely want to do, because I know I don't have the escapism to share it with other people and like get their approval on it. And so like, that's just like a personal development thing for me. But
Yeah.
You don't care about your chocolate croissants? You don't want anyone to see?
oh yeah, I only eat chocolate croissants so people on Twitter can
That's
see
what I'm
that.
saying.
It's like, exactly.
you
Like,
don't care.
I like do things for my own enjoyment now. And like, my level of happiness where I'm at in my life has completely changed from where I was a year ago.
So wild that you lose in tennis for your own enjoyment.
All right, relax. That's off the record. Scott, clip that one. Get the timestamp.
But no, that's a great point. I think I deleted my Instagram app off my phone and like only had Twitter, and I was like forcing myself to like only be on social medias that can make you money.
Yeah.
And like produce things for me instead of take things from me, which is like take your time, take your enjoyment, take your views of self-worth, and things like that. So, I've been to have the happiest time of my life without Instagram on my phone.
It might be toxic, but there's still a side of me that like is motivated by proving people wrong and like showing people that I can be people that used to, bully me.
Plus, it's a funnel.
Yeah.
Well, you got to prove it to yourself. I
If
think
you know,
more
you
than
know.
anything.
Yeah. I could give a shit, honestly.
Yeah, like prove it more to yourself. Like, why do you care what other people think? Like, prove it to yourself that you can do these things.
Oh, 100%. But there's still a feeling deep down, like if I can,
Who
be
hurt you,
successful.
bro?
No. I relate with him though, because it's also like we talked about the second greatest player of all time, Michael Jordan. He would create like fake enemies.
That's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Exactly. I know. He would create fake enemies. Pretty ridiculous idea.
Crazy how
So-
LeBron doesn't do that because he's a softie.
His blood's boiling. No,
he
but
just
seriously,
fucking propped up
to
in
actually
his
make
chair.
a
LeBron
point,
loves
like,
China.
whatever works for you, like if that's gonna push you to work harder,
Yeah.
great.
Like if I'm in the gym, I think back to 8th grade when I was chubby. I'm like,
Didn't
I
you
don't
just
wanna be
say that motivation is fleeting and you need discipline?
It is. But if you also have discipline, there's that extra motivation to make the 100th cold call or go the extra mile. Like,
Yeah, but
can't
I'm
only
not
have
making that
motivation.
100th
I feel like
cold
you
call
can-
because someone said I couldn't make that 100th
Yeah.
cold call.
But some people operate that way. I'm
Yeah.
saying.
I feel like,
Like
But
Michael
you're not going to
Jordan.
make that 100th cold call the 100th day, if that's your reason.
Yeah. Obviously, it's a combination.
I think if it's rooted deep down enough, you can rely on that at any point, and it'll get you there.
I don't think so. I think it's a combination.
I
Like
think it's a
motivation
weaker-
could definitely be helpful in short sprints.
It's a
But
weaker
long-term, you need
foundation.
discipline.
It's a weaker foundation.
Dude, if I don't want to go to the gym, I'm like, I used to be fat. Like I have to fucking.
Well,
go
there
to
you
the
go.
gym.
It's for yourself. It's not for someone else.
True.
It's,
I guess
it's
that's
like a
true.
you versus you
third
thing.
grade gym teacher who used to call you a fatty Christian.
Or the leasing agent at the apartment we were
Damn,
touring.
bro.
Oh yeah.
Goblin.
We
mode
just
now.
did an apartment tour downtown, and the real estate or leasing agent called Christian fat. So he's been in the gym 3 times
That's
a day
literally like
since
the
then.
word. That's bad sales right there.
It was hilarious.
Oh, it was
super
hilarious?
fun.
All right.
She said there was like a weight limits for pets, and I was like, oh, Christian, like acting like he was Andre and I's pet. I mean, it's kind of funny. But
It's
she's
the
like,
man's
yeah, you need to
birthday
lose a
over
couple
here. Man,
pounds.
kicking him when he's down.
All right, we're done. Wrap.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy
bro.
birthday. Are you guys moving out of the house?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. But kind of to wrap this in the most, I guess, sensible way, because we've done a pretty good job so far. We're kind of going off the tracks now.
That's what it's supposed to be, though.
Yeah, no, this is a lot of fun. But what I'm interested in hearing is like, you've come so far in a year, which is really motivating and inspiring to people that are wanting to get started or have been in the game for a year or longer. I guess even for you, did you think you'd be this far a year ago? Like a year ago?
No, I did a lot of like I do a lot of like goal setting and like manifestation stuff and like writing down things, repeating it. But yeah, it wasn't really like numbers driven. It was just like this is the quality of life that I'm working for type thing. So I mean, you definitely have to write down your stuff. I break it down into like 90-day segments because it's more attainable than like
Yeah.
in 10 years I'm gonna be a millionaire. Like, what are you gonna do to do that? Like, you have to break down those 10 years into years and then months and then days and like, so I mean, definitely didn't think that I would be where I am doing what I'm doing, but I knew that I was capable of something similar.
And so, with that, I guess, where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years? Like, are you trying to build a business and take it public? Are you trying to stay more low key? Like, what does that look like for you?
I mean, really, my goals is like to play as much golf as possible and make as much money as possible, and make sure that the people around me are like happy, taken care of, and think highly of me, and like know I'm someone that's dependable and like I can help others. So wherever that takes me, I'm down to go. I know that I'm just gonna do the same daily actions that have taken me to this point, because compounding. If you compound an investment for 1 year compared to 5 years, from that 1 to 3 to 5 is when you see that crazy growth.
Hockey
Yeah.
stick.
So like I'm still like right here. I'm just building the proper habits to be able to go to those high levels.
So are you more driven by the lifestyle then, and kind of like what that can bring you, and just doing more of what you're already doing?
yeah, I realize that like I'm sacrificing a lot right now, like
Yeah.
time, money.
Actually, talk about
Only
that,
2
because
golf
we
rounds
talked
a
about
week.
this a little bit in the car when we were golfing last week. Like, you're one of the most disciplined in our space that I've talked to when it comes to finances, and I think like
Yeah.
I learn a lot from that, and it might have to do with like your maturity and just how much life experience you have. But like, talk to that, because like I think a lot of people could benefit from this.
Yeah, I think I've taken like a $50,000 pay bump or pay decrease from like my 9 to 5 to what I pay myself now. I mean, obviously I use my, I expense a lot of things and I can like do things in the business card, but like I'm an S corp. I'm a W-2 employee for my own for automated revenue. But yeah, I'm paying myself $5,000 a month because it teaches me like financial like restraint. Like, you have more money, but you could just do dumb stuff with it. But like, I really have all I want. Like, I have a roof over my head. I have a fiance.
Brand
I
new
have
driver.
a dog. I have a brand new driver from my fiance. Thank you. But yeah, I'm happy with where I'm at. And like, if I can live this way with this amount of money, like, God knows what I can do with much more
Yeah.
than it. So I think it's just like a good thing. It's like putting all that
Discipline,
money
right?
back into the business is what's helped grown it faster than it would have if I was being selfish.
Yeah. My last question: if you exited for 100 mil tomorrow, would you work again or would you just golf?
I would probably still work because I just have to be doing something.
Start a
Would I
golf
be
business.
Would I be doing the same work? Probably different work, much different, higher leverage work, and pay more people to do the things that I'm doing on a daily basis. But yeah, definitely a lot more golf too. It's
Solid
addicting.
answer.
Yeah.
You have another question, or
No, that was really it. I mean, congrats on all the growth, bro. Like, we've been working with you for, what is it, maybe like 6 months. We've seen him 2x his business, get engaged, like on a personal level, ton of growth there, and just really fucking crush it. So I'm excited for the future for you.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure being on here. I love all you guys, and hope to do another one of these down the road with better results.
real quick. There's guys in the audience out there that are essentially you a year ago.
Yeah.
What would you say to them? What would you leave them with?
Do it. Take the leap. Like, I always think of things in like a best case and worst case scenario. So like if you're in a 9 to 5, you're in a sales job, you're smart, you're hitting quota, you're doing the right things, but you just want more or more freedom. Think of the best case scenario. Best case scenario, you quit your job, you go all in, you build something that's like a legacy, you make more money, you have more freedom, you're a happier person, which means you can do better things for people around you. That's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is if you try it, you fail, you realize it's not for you, and you just get another sales job. There's like 1,000 sales jobs out there that are gonna pay you good if you have the experience. So like stop pussyfooting around and just jump, and like you're not gonna die when you jump. Like, you can just get another job. Like, it's not, so just go for it.
Yeah. Awesome, dude. Last question is, where can our audience find you, follow you, and learn more about what it looks like to work with you?
Yeah. So if you've heard this and you're like, well, I would love to get a sales job. It's thesdrwhisperer.com, the SDR Whisperer on Twitter. And if you're a business owner listening to this and you're like, well, this guy sounds like he can definitely train a salesperson. I want some of his salespeople. It's wegeneratesales.com. Automated Revenue is the company.
Dude, how do you get these domains? Like, it's insane. What was the latest one you bought?
Hireappointmentsetters.com. It was like $12 on GoDaddy.
Unreal, dude. You're gonna have to start like a domain
simplereally.com.
real
Yeah, I was
estate
gonna
course.
say, I'm the proud owner of simplereally.com. We gotta start sending emails from that.
I also
directing
have
it to client attention.
moneytwitter.guru, Hire Appointment Setters, We Generate Sales.
I have
the SDR Whisperer.
andrehakeljr.com. It's pretty valuable.
Yeah, a lot of competition for that one.
A ton of people want that.
Your
I
dad,
wanted it there, bro. That's
your
surprising,
dad,
bro.
your
Appreciate
dad
it, bro.
wanted it.